With 1/4 of the world's area and close to 700 million people, Britain's empire in the 20th century was the biggest in human history. Nevertheless, the empire derived its power through bloodshed. India was one of the numerous countries that endured their cruel actions. It is difficult to determine how many Indians died as a direct or indirect effect of British policies, but according to historians, tens of millions of Indians perished during this time for a variety of reasons. Here are the most heinous and violent incidents connected to them during their rule over an enormous portion of India. Number 1. The Jallianwala Bagh Massacre, also known as the Massacre of Amritsar, happened on April 13, 1919, when British troops opened fire on a sizable crowd of unarmed Indians in an open area known as the Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, Punjab region, now in Punjab state, killing several hundred and injuring many more. In that it permanently damaged Indo-British ties and served as a precursor to Mohandas, Mahatma Gandhi's full devotion to the cause of Indian nationalism and independence from Britain. It served as a turning point in modern Indian history. Number 2. The Bengal famine of 1943, which is believed to have killed up to 3 million people, was not brought on by drought, but rather by a complete policy failure on the part of Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister at the time. The British government's denial policy had a direct impact on the Bengal famine as well. In simple terms, it means to seize all excess rice supplies in Bengal's vulnerable coastal areas, preventing an invading Japanese army from feeding its troops with locally seized supplies. More than 40,000 boats were destroyed out of fear of a Japanese invasion, significantly aggravating the crisis and destroying Bengal's vital water transportation network. The continuous conflict, middle-class hoarding, extortionate middlemen, and the callous attitude of Indian society toward the problem of starvation only made the situation more serious. Number 3. The Sepoy Mutiny or Indian Rebellion of 1857 was started in late March 1857. A sepoy, Indian soldier, in the employ of the East India Company named Mangal Pandey attacked British officers at the military garrison in Barrackpore. He was arrested and then executed by the British in early April. Widespread insurrection against British rule in India started when sepoys refused to use brand, new rifle cartridges, because they believed they were greased with oil made of a combination of pigs and cow's fat, making them unclean for Muslims and Hindus. The soldiers were tied down and locked up, but their furious compatriots killed their British officer and marched on Delhi. The fighting that followed was fierce on both sides and resulted in defeat for the Indian soldiers. The British government immediately dissolved the East India Company in favor of direct sovereignty over India. In addition, the British administration started a policy of consulting with Indians. Hindu community has been offended by social restrictions enforced by the British. Number 4. To make matters worse, British colonizers instituted a system of legal theft known to time, honored observers as the drain of wealth, in which Britain taxed the Indian populace and used the proceeds to buy Indian goods like indigo, grain, cotton, and opium, acquiring these commodities for nothing. These products were then either consumed in Britain or exported again, with the revenues going to the British government, which used them to fund the industrialization of both Britain and its colonial colonies, including the United States, Canada, and Australia. With today's currency, this system robbed India of items worth trillions of dollars. The drain was ruthlessly imposed by the British, who had India export food, even when local food security was endangered by drought or flooding. As their resources were siphoned off to Britain and its colonial colonies, historians have determined that tens of millions of Indians perished from starvation during 4 significant policy-induced famines in the late 19th century. There was extensive violence during the British occupation of India. Some of it was aimed at the Indian civilian populace. Mass massacres occurred during the colonial wars of conquest, although few of them are remembered.